So welcome everyone to our webinar today covering financial aid. This is going to be an overview somewhat of financial aid and how it works, particularly at the graduate level, but we're also going to specifically address how the Bush School offers its scholarships and considerations, and students can then maybe find jobs on campus and so forth. So we've put a lot of resources here together, working partly with Texas A&M Financial Aid, as well as our own resources here within the Bush School. And we'll cover all of this step by step. So forgive me if it gets a little dry at times, because financial aid is not my expert area, but we're hoping to fill in the gaps so you understand a little bit about how this looks different than undergraduate aid. So the presenters today is myself, Catherine Meyer. I work with the admissions and recruitment here at the Bush School. And then we'll have joining us Ashley Treadway, who's our Assistant Director of Admissions, and we'll cover more about the Bush School scholarships and information. So the agenda today is basically financial aid for graduate school. So I'll start with, is the cost of a master's worth it? Some considerations you should put in for that. Funding priorities when deciding to take out aid. Applying for financial aid, both at the department level and at the university level. The types of aid that are available to you as a graduate student. Then we'll specifically change over to Bush School aid and costs, Texas A&M financial aid resources, and some general aid advice and some resources that we've gathered over the years that might be of interest to you. So we'll start with that first consideration. You've already, for most of you, incurred some debt for undergrad. Hopefully not too much crushing that you won't decide whether or not grad school is an option for you. But you do need to decide if the career path you're taking is going to have payback. Certainly there are some jobs that by gaining that master's degree, you're gaining some additional skill sets, some networking, education, and you'll payoff will be making those connections in the field that you desire, that maybe you would have skipped a few years of experience by working in the field strictly with a bachelor's degree. So you need to think in terms of what kind of job path you're wanting to take, where it is going to be located. Some people strictly want to stay within Texas. Others are heading to Washington, D.C. Others dream big and think about maybe working internationally. And so thinking about the type of job you have and where that location is, and if you can find pay scales for those locations to compare what you would earn versus how much will that master's give me a leg up. Also think about your benefits packages, the trajectory that you're taking, and more, right? There's all these kinds of considerations. I will say that when doing a webinar earlier with Matt in Career Services, and I believe that was probably during our 3-2 session that we did for Texas A&M students, we started to talk about the distinction between a bachelor's and a master's for those students in starting at a pay scale with the federal level. So we used it because it is something that anyone can Google and pull up a federal scale. You can't do that with different state levels because it varies between Texas, Maryland, California, what have you. So if you were just to go into the federal general schedule scale, then you'll notice that at a bachelor's going in at a GS7, that those students typically, and I'm going to use DC as the example because a lot of our students do head that way, you start at $49,000 with just a bachelor's degree on level 1. If you get your master's degree, typically most of those jobs will start at what is called a GS9 level. So you've skipped all of the 7 levels and the 8 level and start at GS9. That starts at around $60,000. So there's a distinguishing difference of $11,000 that you are earning back. And let's say that you earn that and you're starting at age 26, you're getting that $11,000 every single year for the rest of the time that you're on that federal pay scale. So you will see some payback on a degree like ours if you are looking for those types of federal level jobs. I was just curious to see what Austin and Houston had because a lot of our students do stay in Texas. And those amounts also came out to around that $11,000 difference. So it can have some payback. And I've listed some of the areas that our degrees students prepare for, and that ranges from the government service and in energy and science. So keep in mind that yes, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel if you are taking on a little bit of debt for this. So graduate education does cost money. It's a huge investment of your time and your finances. You're very fortunate if you can find a public program that is charging closer to that $10,000 range. We're even pretty low cost, and we're at $13,400. So if you're looking at more of the expensive end of it, oftentimes by going to a private school, then that could be $50,000 plus per year. And that's just in tuition and fees. With that cost, well, maybe not the fees in it, sometimes that even goes more, but that's not counting housing, books, food, cost of relocation. Are you ready for that kind of commitment? Just know that you're going to be taking in on that. So where do you draw the line of how much debt you're willing to take? And part of that consideration, obviously, is how much should you incur in undergraduate? Second thing to remember here is that graduate aid is packaged a little differently from undergrad aid. You are still using FAFSA for most of you. You are still taking out loans for some of you. But remember that at the graduate level, you are considered independent. So you're already tagged for higher need. You are separated out from your parents at that point. You're no longer a dependent. So in that case, you could qualify for more loans. That's not to say that you have to take them out, but it's nice to know if you don't receive more substantial scholarship that you have a resource to pull out some financial help. So keep that in mind, that you will want to apply for FAFSA and apply for that kind of aid. And then you have an additional resources with program funding, and that's where you're working with your department or your school. And many of them are going to work with what are called merit-based aid. So that could be those straight out scholarships or those grad assistant positions. Academic factors like GPA, where you went to school, maybe sometimes your major with it, your GRE if you're taking it, your perceived contribution to that class, all of those factors do matter when they are deciding on funding. So remember, when you're comparing schools, that you are looking at apples to apples. What does your financial package cover? So for instance, when we are offering a person a spot in our class, here at the Bush School, we also provide how much funding they are receiving in year one. So it'll say, welcome, you've been admitted to such and such department. Your first year scholarship is $10,000. It'll be $5,000 in the fall, $5,000 in the spring. That's all we will say. We don't then go into, here's the financial aid package that we've contacted Texas A&M, and it looks like you did FAFSA. We don't know any of that. We're not talking to them directly. That is your job at the grad student level, to make sure that you are talking to Texas A&M Financial Aid. So we'll often tell students that when you're submitting your application to us, be sure you start that application with FAFSA with Texas A&M and start looking to their website of what other scholarships they may have that can support you past what our department is going to do. So be sure that the schools that you're also applying to outside of us does the same thing. Sometimes they may package it differently, and their financial aid offer may not come until weeks later, but maybe it includes both their scholarship and the financial aid office. So look at those types of offers and what it includes. So also consider, what is that aid covering in terms of the cost of the program? So if a school is giving you a $20,000 scholarship, but they cost $50,000, just make sure you're doing the subtraction and knowing what that overall cost is, and not going, well, they gave me 20,000, you're giving me 10,000. Hey, can you match their offer? No, we don't work that way. This isn't a market base. This was a merit based, which is how we awarded the scholarship. So be looking at those kinds of figures. Also be thinking about your living costs. Do you need a car at that location? What's that going to entail? Just all the little intangibles of living and living comfortably. Particular apartment costs vary quite differently, even in our town. What kind of amenities do you want? And if you are willing to take in loans, what kind of loans? And we're going to cover those in the next slide or two. So in short, the order of your financing, and you should know this, but I'm going to reiterate it, free money comes first. Look for any type of scholarships and grants that that department is giving you that is not in exchange for work. It's just, welcome, here's some money, we want to help you out. That's the scholarships and grants. Your second order is the earned money. Can you get a graduate assistant position, some kind of work study, which is need-based? Those are kinds of things that maybe even getting a part-time job so that as you're working and saving money, you can pay your bills and not take out loans. And that leads to the third option, which is the borrowed money, which is your federal loans, private loans, all those other types of options that is out there that you will have to pay back. So in applying for financial aid, and this specifically is for domestic applicants here, you do need to submit FAFSA. So do go to the college level and apply through it. It's FAFSA.gov. I put the Texas A&M code here. That application opened in October. So if someone is looking for a fall 2022, it's already open for them to go in and fill out. So go and do that somewhere between now and usually between mid-March, because you want to have that money available in knowing if you get admitted to that school that you can afford it and that you can take out loans. And oftentimes that decision is due to schools by April 15th. So if you haven't filled out that FAFSA in time, you're not going to know what you qualify for. So aim for that October to mid-March to fill it out. And just remember that courses are going to need to be listed on your degree plan to be eligible for that federal financial aid. So eventually, as you get prepared and registering for classes in March, April, May, June, whenever that is, that those classes will have to be marked as on your degree plan to be eligible for that kind of loan and aid that you're going to get. That should be standard. There's no surprises in that. We don't have classes necessarily that people are trying to figure out life. 16 classes will work with you to make sure that they're legit. Now, federal student aid, the FSA ID, you're going to need, just make sure that you're creating that and you're going to be able to access your personal record. It should be something similar to what you've already done if you've done FAFSA for undergrad. And then you're also going to have what is called a student aid report available to you, which is a recap of all the FAFSA info that you submitted. And you can get it electronically a few days after it's processed. And schools then can then start to correspond with you. So you could start to hear back from the schools earlier, even before you know if you're admitted to that program. Now, Texas A&M also make sure that we offer a couple of other opportunities. For international applicants, they can submit what is called the International Student Financial Aid application, and that's found on the Texas A&M website, and that application opens in February for those students for that following semester. The Texas applicants, they have what is called Texas Application for State Financial Aid, that it also opens October the 1st, much like FAFSA was. So take a look, see if that's something that you qualify for. I don't know how many of our students do either one of those, but I do know a lot do the FAFSA. So this is where it gets a little dry. So just bear with me. Remembering that FAFSA is determining your need in order to qualify for loans. So that need is determined by expected family contribution. Now, remember, you're an independent now, not dependent. So a lot of you don't have much income. You sometimes just graduated from undergrad. Maybe you don't have any income. And so they're considering that and investments and household size and dependents. A lot of you aren't married, don't have dependents. So you're qualifying for quite a lot of money. So the cost of attendance is that estimate of what it costs to attend your university, including tuition and fees and living, and it's your basic budget. So that cost of attendance minus the expected family contribution, which may be zero, indicates your financial need. And that financial need sometimes can help you get some additional grants or work study. But students are not allowed to receive aid that exceeds their cost of attendance. So remembering, if you are getting a Bush School scholarship, which you will if you're in the Master of Public Service and International Affairs, you have to report that to financial aid because they need to know what other scholarships that you've qualified for. So be sure that if you're receiving a Bush School scholarship some type of outside scholarship, you applied for the Texas Aggie Graduate Grant and got that, you have to make sure that that's all showing up in your portal under financial aid so that you can then have that subtracted, and now they know how much eligibility you have for non-based aid. So it's just reporting what you earned for free money to them so they can subtract it. Not too complicated there. So again, when comparing those aid packages, just make sure you're comparing all those different factors, not just the total financial award. I was given $20,000, but okay, what is that minus the cost, minus the living, minus the whatever, and put all those things into a spreadsheet and know what to expect. Now, in terms of the types of financial aid is going to be a combination of federal, state, institutional, and private funds. So aid can be a combination of scholarships, grants, loans, and work study. Now, need-based aid is all done through qualification from FAFSA. So that's where you might be able to find a grant or a student loan, sometimes work study. Not sure how many of our students do that, but I'm sure there's a few of them. The non-need-based aid, which includes any of your merit-based scholarships and things, those are commonly granted, all right? Commonly at the grad level, you're getting loans, and those are unsubsidized. So notice at the bottom of here, loans that are subsidized are not available to graduate students. So don't turn down unsubsidized hoping you'll get subsidized like you did in undergrad, because it doesn't exist for you at this level. So commonly you're going to be looking at unsubsidized government loans such as Stafford or Grad Plus loan. And remember, those do accrue interest while you're in school. So if you can set up a little payment plan where you can keep some of that interest down, then maybe you can do some of that while you're in school. But it is used commonly to cover tuition and fees or living costs, right? Now, the unsubsidized loans, just to say that you're responsible for interest and keeping up with the deferment periods. But once you graduate, you have 6 months before you have to start making those payments. Or if you drop down below full-time status, you have to start paying those loans. So payment is automatically postponed until you're no longer enrolled or you've graduated, and the interest accrues the entire time. So the fixed rate right now, which I have the unsubsidized loan, and then there's also another name for one, I can't think of what it is, but it varies between 5.28 and 6.28%. And the max amount that you're allowed to take out each year is $20,500. So just keep in mind, that's a lot of money. Most of the times our students don't need that much, but it is available to you. Now, the breakout here for scholarships is, remember, that's money that doesn't have to be repaid. And sometimes you have to meet eligibility criteria. So it can be on or off campus funds. I did highlight here in Texas, if you are not from Texas and you receive a scholarship of $1,000 or more, then the institution can issue non-resident waivers. We do that for all of our students who are coming from California, who are coming from international. And that means that they can then receive a waiver that's worth about $12,000. So scholarships are going to include all the kinds of scholarships that Ashley's going to talk about later. But they can be academic, they can be diversity scholarships, they can be disability, need-based, service type of awards. It just covers a lot of different aspects. And they're not just our scholarships, they may be scholarships you've applied to elsewhere. Now, the assistantships and fellowships, some schools do grant what are called these GA or TA, teaching or graduate level. There's also sometimes what are called non-teaching. So it's a GANT, a grad assistant non-teaching, or a GAR, grad assistant research. And those appointments also can be given in the first year. Uniquely here at the Bush School, we only give those to our second year students because we want to see how you do in year one and not have you working to get that money. That's why we give those scholarships. But in the second year, you can compete for a GA position. And if you get it, then you just give up your first year scholarship, which is usually pretty easy because if you're coming in at a standard level, that's $5,000, and those GA positions are worth probably closer to $14,000 plus some additional benefits. So just keep in mind, you will be working for those because assistantships do require 20 hours per week. And then sometimes you're eligible for insurance benefits, which ours do as well. Now the fellowships are a little bit different. Remember, assistantships are payroll because you're working for it. Fellowships, sometimes you're not. Sometimes that's straight out money. Sometimes it is working with it. So it varies across the campus. They have different types of payment that might come with it. And ordinarily, fellowship holders are not required to work. So just keep in mind that that might be straight money that you've got to report over to financial aid. So at Texas A&M, those packages can vary from $1,000 up to $29,000. And we do have several fellowships we'll talk about later that we have to make nomination for because they're across Texas A&M, and we're competing against other departments for those. There's also what are called the work study, which is part-time employment, either on or off campus with an employer. But this is a need-based program. So again, you got to submit that FAFSA in order to qualify for it. And then you have what are called grants. These are funds that don't have to be repaid. They're usually not required meeting any type of financial need. And sometimes they're state grants. So for instance, at Texas A&M, we have one that is called the Texas Aggie Graduate Grant, TAG. And it's available to our Texas residents who earn less than $10,000 in other scholarships. So it's good for $2,500 in the fall, $2,500 in the spring. It does have a max of $5,000, but many of our students who get that $3,000 or $5,000 and who are from Texas will apply for that and get it. But it is first come, first served. And I don't know how much money they have. So as soon as you know that you're admitted for this program, they're going to enroll here, you need to apply for that. And you do have to get a signature from our department heads. So it is one that we'll tell you about and we'll remind you about it, but you'll want to do that depending on where your scholarship level is. And then as far as loans go, I talked about this briefly, but this is borrowed money that has to be repaid. Many do have low interest rates. These are better interest rates most of the time than what you're going to find on a credit card. So don't listen to the credit cards of trying to pay off in a desperation. We have other emergency loans and things like that here at Texas A&M. So you'll be in a better shape to take out a loan than trying to max out your credit card. So unsubsidized loans, remember, $20,500 per year is the max amount you can take. It does require 5 hours of enrollment. The max total debt that anyone can take out with an unsubsidized loan is over $138,000. But this does include what you might have already taken out for undergrad. So the government doesn't want you to get too far in the hole, though $138,000 is a pretty big hole. So just realize there is a max total debt limit. The National Consumer Law Center does provide a lot of information about repayment options, avoiding and getting out of default, and dealing with collection agencies, but you can go to studentloanborrowerassistance.org. There's a lot of really good information out there. Briefly, I want to talk about these two. Public service loan forgiveness has not been the most stable or easy thing for students to do. It has existed for a long time, but there were some very detailed elements of it that students had to go in and document how they were paying. Their agency or organization that they worked for had to be on the list of qualifying, because you did have to be things like a nonprofit or a government, military, a public school teacher or official, sometimes college employment, national and international service participation like AmeriCorps. All those things were qualifiers, but they weren't just an automatic thing. You had to go in and fill out paperwork and then make payments on these. And what the gist of it is that as long as you were making payments every month on time and made 120 qualifying payments under this paperwork and approval, then the rest of your loans would be forgiven. And it has had some trouble and people were angry with it because only a certain percentage of people were getting their stuff approved. I think a lot of this has been under review and might have done some changes. So keep in mind, look for these public service loan forgiveness programs, see if you can qualify. Everything's been changing, especially with Biden in office, with trying to extend some of this loan forgiveness. So see what this involves, because this may be very relevant, particularly for our kinds of students who are going into these fields of nonprofits and government. They can often qualify for it. but you got to look at the stages of what does it require me to do to qualify for the forgiveness. Another one I don't know a lot about, but it's called income-based repayments. And this caps your monthly and guaranteed student loan payments based on your income and your family size. So it keeps you from ballooning up and not having the money to pay that. So it just says that your repayments will be less than 10% of your income. So there is some ability to, again, forgive debt, but it's after 25 years of qualifying payments, which sounds like a really, really long time. So just check that out if you're interested in learning more about it once you graduate. But it's up to you to access these programs and keep track of your payments and your employment records because they do have eligibility. All right, so I'm going to pass the baton over to Ashley for a few minutes, and she's going to now focus on the Texas A&M and Bush School scholarship options.
Awesome, thanks, Catherine. So to dive into more specifically what we offer here at Texas A&M and the Bush School, we have Bush School scholarships that we award to students that can range anywhere from $1,000 a year to $15,000 a year. But I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail on the next slide. Right now, I want to point out that if you're admitted to one of our programs, go ahead and search for scholarships, other graduate student scholarships at the scholarships.tamu.edu website. There's a lot of other outside opportunities besides just the Bush School scholarship that you may qualify for. It's just up to you for you to go through those scholarships and figure out which ones you need to apply to or could apply to, and you never know, it's free money. Additionally, there's a site, some Aggies, if you're on here, you know about Jobs for Aggies, but employers across Texas A&M, the campus here in College Station, post their jobs here. It could be a graduate assistantship, it could be just a student worker job, or it could be a part-time job. But go to this site, see if there's any jobs on campus that you may qualify for, and that could help supplement some of the funding that you need to fund your education. Additionally, once a student is admitted, they gain access to a portal called Howdy. So it's just howdy.tamu.edu. There's a My Finances tab that when they click on it, you can automatically check the status of your aid there. You can get any required forms. So upon admission, you may need to fill out an enrollment intent questionnaire. All financial aid forms, awards, and eligibility are available through that My Finances tab. So just remember that if you're admitted. And then, of course, our scholarships and financial aid department is here to assist students in applying for and figuring out what scholarships and financial aid they qualify for. So they're always available to help. Just know that as you get closer to the start of the semester, the busier they get. So their wait times, it lengthens as you get closer to the semester, as you can imagine. And then there's also a Texas A&M Money Education Center that you can attend. They have presentations, one-on-one meetings, or counseling sessions is what they call it, just for help on managing your budget and how to live on a budget. Grad school is a little bit different than undergrad. You're really on your own, so maybe you're having to juggle a couple of different things: rent, car payment, all education, all of it. So you can attend those money education centers for a little bit piece of advice, counseling. And if you're a military or a military member or a veteran, or maybe you're a family member of a veteran or military member, we have a Veteran Services Department dedicated to getting you the aid that you may qualify for. So that may be post 9/11 GI Bills, Hazelwood, maybe there's a dependents educational assistance program that you qualify for, etc. So if you're admitted into the program, there's also under the financial aid tab in Howdy, there's veterans benefits or military benefits. You click on that and you can just start applying for things that you may qualify for. They do require you, the Veteran Services Office requires you to submit a form upon admission. And that basically tells them what to go out and look for you. So you have to submit that form just to let Veteran Services know, hey, I may qualify, I am a military member, and here's all my information, and they'll go from there with you. So specifically, our two flagship programs, the Master of Public Service and Administration and the Master of International Affairs degrees that we offer here at the Bush School specifically, we award 100% of our incoming full-time students a scholarship, a merit scholarship. So that is a competitive scholarship and it is based on merit. We use all parts of your application. That includes personal statement to resume to experience to GPA. If you provided a GRE score, we're required to provide a GRE score. All of it goes into one piece of consideration to determine your merit and your funding amount. So there are a few Coverdell and AmeriCorps scholarships that we match the funds that we award. So I think it's $5,000, but Catherine, you can correct me if I'm wrong. We also award one grad merit fellowship. So that's a top award for each program. And then we also have a diversity fellowship award that's faculty nominated. So again, it's based off of all of your application materials. Faculty review all of those at the time that you apply, and they move forward those that they would like to consider for that fellowship. It is awarded across the campus, Texas A&M campus. So we're competing against not just Bush School students, but everyone here at A&M. Then we have a Robertson Fellowship Award that's also $29,000. And so that's for those that are going into the federal sector. And it is also based on all of your application materials. So there's no separate application needed for this merit-based scholarship that we award. Your application into the program is your application for the funding. So 2/3 of our students receive anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000, or receive the $3,000 or $5,000 scholarship per year. That's pretty typical. If you're a non-resident or an international student, we grant non-resident tuition waivers with our merit-based scholarship. So it's worth about $12,000 a year. We also offer graduate assistantships to those students in year 2. We do not offer graduate assistantships in your first year. So in your second year, you're eligible to apply and get those graduate assistantships. And then we offer internship scholarships by attending several workshops or presentations that's put on by our student services team here, student and career services team here at the Bush School specifically. So you may qualify for some extra funding, especially if you have a non-paid internship. So to jump over into the cost of the Master of Public Service Administration and International Affairs degrees. So for 1 year, the tuition and fees for Texas residents is about $13,400. That's before any scholarship. For non-residents, you're looking at about $26,000, and for international students, that's $29,000. So this is based on 12 credit hours. So some may take 9, but 12 credit hours is typical for a student here in a graduate program. So before the scholarship of $3,000 all the way up to $29,000 is applied, and this is before the non-resident tuition waiver of $12,000. So if you subtract that scholarship and the non-resident tuition waiver, if applicable, you're coming out to about $8,500 to $9,500 for tuition and fees. Our average scholarship, like we said, is about $5,000, and then for international students, you're coming out to about $12,000. Cost of living is completely separate. So no matter where you go, just keep in mind that cost of living is often not included in your funding award. So look at the place that the college is, figure out what the cost of living is there. For College Station, we're relatively cheap. It's about $21,000 a year, but it all depends on your lifestyle. You either want, really expensive, extravagant living places, or you can get by with a bare minimum. It's up to you. For our Master of International Policy, so switching, this is our 1-year degree. We do not offer funding or scholarship awards for this program. So funding this program is entirely on the student. It's about $16,900 for Texas residents and about $32,000 for non-residents. So once you're admitted, I get this question a lot about how does funding apply to my account? So will I have money left over if I have extra in scholarship money, etc.? How does that work? So it all depends on your funding is applied to your account in the order that it's applied. So financial aid applies to your billing statement no sooner than 10 days before the first day of class each semester. Fellowships have varied disbursement, so it all depends on when your sponsor is going to get that money in for that fellowship. So if your fellowship is applied before your financial aid, you may have some left over and you may get a refund. It just depends on the order in which they're posted to your account. You can often contact the financial aid office if you know that you're getting some free funding coming in at a later date to ask them to hold on applying a specific scholarship until after that aid is posted to your account. Direct deposit is required for all admitted students because if you have an excess in funds, they need somewhere to send that money. And the easiest place is to direct deposit it into a bank account. So you are required, you'll have a hold on your account. It's not a registration hold, but it's just a hold on your account, prompting you to set up a direct deposit again in the Howdy portal. So for financial aid 101, I like this image up here that Catherine put on the slide. But for financial aid advice, I always tell students, apply for financial aid early. The earlier you can submit your application, the more you may qualify for. You don't want to miss a deadline or figure out that a deadline is already passed, etc. So just as soon as if you're admitted, go ahead and apply for all the financial aid opportunities that you can find. So FAFSA opens October 1st. For the fall entry. Of course, if you're applying for the Bush School, you won't know if you're admitted until mid-March, but you can go ahead and definitely get your FAFSA in, and the financial aid office will hold it until they know whether you're an admitted student or not, and then process it at that point. Schools often distribute the most of their money or their best financial aid opportunities first on a first come, first served basis. So that's why you want to get your application in as soon as possible. And then always research and apply for as much free money as you can. So even if you're not sure if you're eligible for a particular free money scholarship or opportunity, go ahead and apply. You never know. What's the worst that can happen? You're declined. Ask if schools will waive the application fee. So specifically for the Bush School, we'll waive the application fee for those that are members of service organizations such as Peace Corps, AmeriCorps, Teach for America. I'm drawing a blank on all of the other options, but if you're a part of a service organization, for instance, the Bush School will pay that application fee for you, but it never hurts to ask any college that you're applying to if they do offer those. It's also a free opportunity for, a free application fee. If you are admitted, report any changes to your financial situation to your financial aid office. So if you receive an outside scholarship or hardship, always report that back to the financial aid office of the college that you're admitted to and going to, because they have to adjust your package based on your financial contribution. They will get rid of your loans first because that's money you owe back. So that way you get free money is applied to your account first, but just let them know any changes that come up. Interest rates on student loans are often lower than credit cards. So if you can take out student loans over a credit card, recommend that.
Okay, so back to me. So the aid resources, I just wanted to give a couple of slides worth of some, I guess, best websites of use. So I know a lot of the information that I was gathering to put some of these slides together was found in the federal student aid. So go to the US government website, read about the aid, managing loans, and you can get that at studentaid.gov. There's a grad school prep checklist that's also available. It just has a lot more information. You have to go to resources, prepare for college, checklists, graduate school, but very helpful information there. You also have, I don't know that I always promote one person, but Heather Jarvis was a person that I had run across years ago on the idealist.org website, which is listed next. And she just has some sections in there called tools that I thought was really helpful. So it references other helpful sites, articles, webinars to better help you understand your options. The starting point was listening to a webinar like this, but she gets into the nitty gritty on some other aspects. And so I just thought her website was helpful. And so I listed it here. The idealist.org website is where I found hers. And Idealist runs a lot of the grad fairs that we try to attend because they're focused on the public good. And so they have a whole section on funding, which is called Fund Your Future. So also some helpful information on their website. So go to idealistgradschool.org and learn about grad school. Sometimes these change a little bit, so you may have to play with it, but that information should still be up there. Now, one part that has changed a lot over the past few years is we belong to an organization based off our international affairs program, which is called APSIA. And that APSIA stands for Association of Professionals, I say public schools, it's professional schools, my error, in international affairs. And it lists over 100 fellowships and scholarships that you can search for and decide what you're qualified for. And they're not necessarily all going to be international affairs. They're going to be people who are studying history, people who are studying certain regions, all kinds of aspects of econ. So go into that part of the website for apsia.org fellowships. And they just list, I think that we're up to 104 now. Many of those times, those are scholarships like Wrangell and Pickering that we're working with our incoming students who have been granted those from the State Department. So it's a long, long list of them, but you do need to look before really December because some of them have pretty quick deadlines. Some are probably even due this fall. Also want to just say one last thing, because my GA last year had talked about how he had an app that he used called Scholly, My Scholly. There are these kinds of apps out there. Not endorsing any of them. I don't know much about them, but I will say that sometimes they can be helpful. So it might be worth looking around. I think he even paid a small fee. He said it wasn't that much, but it gave him resources and he did find scholarships that he could use. And I don't know if that was specifically for undergrad or if he then turned around and used some for grad school. But I listed here the Scholarship Advisor, scholarships.com, myscholly.com. Again, don't know much about them, but they may be worth looking through and then teetering out into some other options that are listed out there. So that wraps it up. There's a lot of information. I'm open to taking any questions. You can unmute and ask that. I know there's not a whole lot of you on here right now, but Ashley and I are available at any point through this process, through the application, not even dealing specifically with financial aid, that if you want to know more or talk to a student, you can reach out to us. So I'm going to be quiet for a second. If you have a question, just unmute and ask.
I have a quick question.
Sure, John.
So to clarify for myself and maybe others here, the scholarships provided by the Bush School are independent of those obtained outside of the Bush School, such as those you would find or I would find on these aid resources you've listed here.
Correct. So for instance, we have students who have come in before with things like Wrangell Scholarship or a Pickering Scholarship or whatever other name of it might be. And still, and those are just in addition to what the Bush School Scholarship would be, right? So you're building on top of each other. So sometimes it's helpful for us to know what you have, but other times they just report it straight to financial aid. But you just have to report them. Okay. All right, I'm not seeing a whole lot. I feel like if there's anyone else who wants to say something, speak up pretty quickly. Otherwise, I'm not going to let this drag out because these webinars can do that quickly. Anyone who has a question, maybe even outside of financial aid? No. Okay. All right. Well, there's going to wrap it up then. So I will say that tomorrow there is a Zoom Q&A that Ashley will be manning at 3 o'clock. That is for drop-in. So that Zoom link is found on our website under the recruitment events, under admissions. And you're welcome just to drop by and talk with her and ask application questions or what have you. And then we'll have it in another 2 weeks. And then after Thanksgiving, we run those every single week. So I'll have times listed on our website. You guys can come in. Or feel free to reach out to Bush School Admissions at texasamuniversity.edu. So it's right here. And then our phone number, which usually Ashley picks it up because I kind of let it ring. But we're here to help. So thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate your time and good luck in finding some financial aid. We hope to see you soon. Bye.